welcome once again to the Sage. What a day. What a show. If I had ever dreamed in this my journey with you as the Sage of a perfect show, a show that would capture all the things that are intrinsically important to me, this would have been the show. Why? But before that, I am Dr. Kechi Obuago, your Sage, your host on this show. Why? Why am I so touched? Why am I so passionate? We're going to discuss an issue today that for a large part of my life as a person, I have considered to be the most important things in terms of issues. Women empowerment, gender issues concerning women, young girls, young boys, safe motherhood. No woman should die giving birth, that ultimate service. Youth empowerment, reproductive health and reproductive rights. Nothing in my mind can be more important. It is a mandate which it isn't just that I have heard about it, I have lived it for almost 20 years. Preached it, designed programs, traveled across the world. And during those years, I used to proudly say there could be no better mandate. And indeed, there still is no better mandate. And what is the second reason? On set with me today is the absolutely perfect person to discuss these issues with us. First, because she, at this point in time in history, is at the helm of affairs for the great organization that handles these issues. But also because she's a remarkable, remarkable human being. I am so proud to admit that she's been a friend of mine for a long time. A woman with remarkable attributes, great leadership qualities. I could go on and on. And so, we promised you a wow of a show. Join me as in excitement, feeling specially privileged. I introduce you to my guests today, to no less than Dr. Natalia Kanem, the Executive Director of UNFPA and Under Secretary General. Dr. Khanem, you're welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kechi. After that introduction, I just don't know what to say.
I've just started. See me open my iPad. For you to get somebody like Dr. Khanem on set, it would be gross injustice not to give her the honor that is hers. Dr. Natalia Kanem is the United Nations Under Secretary General and the Executive Director of the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA. She was appointed UNFPA's Executive Director by the United Nations Secretary General in 2017. Dr. Khanem joined the UN in 2014 as the UNFPA country representative in the United Republic of Tanzania. And in 2016, she was named the Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Executive Director programs in UNFPA. Dr. Khanem has more than 30 years of strategic leadership experience in the fields of preventive medicine, public and reproductive health, social justice, and philanthropy. She started her research careers with the Johns Hopkins and Columbia University School of Medicine and Public Health. Previously, she served as the founding president of Elmer Philanthropies Incorporated and as senior associate of the Lloyd Best Institute of the West Indies. At the Ford Foundation, from 1992 to 2004, she funded pioneering work on women's reproductive health and human rights, serving first in West Africa, and I'm proud to say in Nigeria
Yes.
for quite a bit of time, and eventually as the Deputy Vice President for Peace and Social Justice programs in Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, Latin America, and North America. She holds a medical degree from Columbia University in New York and a master's degree in public health with specializations in epidemiology and preventive medicine from the University of Washington in Seattle. She is a magna cum laude graduate of Harvard College in History and Science. In 2019, Dr. Khanem presided over the Nairobi Summit on ICPD at 25. I was there.
Yes.
She marked the 25th anniversary of the International Conference on Population and Development. She is a well-recognized and powerful advocate for the rights and choices of women and girls. And she's a key influencer and thought leader in the formulation of global policies on sexual and reproductive health and rights in this sustainable development era. She's been listed as one of the top 100 on gender equality. Dr. Khanem is the 5th executive director of UNFPA since the fund was founded in 1969. And I am privileged to say that I did indeed serve under 4 of those 5 executive directors.
Yes.
Dr. Natalia Kanem, welcome to the sage.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Kachi. And you are a sage in these matters, so I'm really happy to be here.
It's such a pleasure. I feel as if I won the pool. I won the lottery. Because it's not often that somebody with your schedule and your brilliance, if you don't mind my saying so, can make out time to discuss. So we're going to make the most of it. Bear with me.
Very good.
Bear with me.
Good.
Bear with us. Our audience are sitting on the edge of their chairs, waiting to hear. Before I open up and leave you to talk, which is why you're here, let me just say that there was so much I thought we could discuss with you. So I decided to be, good and chose just 4. I felt we will start with asking you about that global, wonderful mandate that is UNFPA's. And then we will go on to ask you, what does it take to be an effective executive director? Then we will go into Nigeria. I know you love us.
Yes, I do.
And so your thoughts, your work in Nigeria, and your hopes for Nigeria. And then we will end with what many of my viewers, I'm sure, will be dying to hear. How on earth did you get to where you are? What did it take to do it? So you see, it's not a lot. But let me start with that mandate that I had talked about that is so wonderful. Tell us about the UNFPA mandate. What is it?
UNFPA And the people of UNFPA, there are about 5,000 of us spread out across the world in over 150 locations. UNFPA represents the best of the United Nations when we think about the job that we have to do by 2030. To leave no one behind means paying attention to those who otherwise would be ignored, would be marginalized. So when UNFPA stood up to say our mission, and you mentioned part of it, that every childbirth be safe, that every pregnancy is wanted and intended, and that young people's potential be fulfilled.
Absolutely.
These are the hopes and dreams of every Nigerian, every African, everywhere in the world. People are looking for that safe harbor so that an adolescent girl is well prepared before she becomes a mother, so that that mother survives and in fact is given every support so that she can successfully get through the pregnancy, breastfeed the newborn, and the joy and the happiness of the family when that continuity of life is respected and the path is well prepared. There's just, I mean, your family is the seat of where people move from. And in order to do that, young people's potential absolutely has to be nurtured. No one kind of springs up with everything in front of them. And that guidance comes from the family, it comes from the community, but it also comes from within. The young person has to have that confidence. So we think every day about how do we do that? How do we instill that understanding so that rather than a path of ignorance and treachery and the young person feeling isolated, instead you have harmony, you have collaboration, and certainly you have a good education for that girl child so that she can blossom into her womanhood and move forward with a purpose.
Absolutely.
So it is a fantastic mandate for our organization.
It is. It is, because you've said it all. That young girl, that woman, that mother, in the end is indeed the heart of this family, of the society.
That's right. What I find really interesting, especially in an era where everything is changing. We had COVID, which now disrupted plans. We've had a season of looking at climate issues. So important. I remember when I came here originally, the hugeness of Lake Chad, which is shrinking. Every day it gets smaller and smaller. This has impact on people's livelihoods, on migration patterns, and also the prospects of young people are changing. Yes, there's a lot of positivity with internet, et cetera, but many, many, many young people can't afford it. They don't really have internet on their phone, if they have a phone. So I think we have to be very deliberate in saying that preparation is not a wish. We have to put that, the stones in place so that there are stepping stones to a brighter future. And ultimately, that potential is huge. But if it's lying fallow, if the field is not plowed, then basically you've really wasted that potential. I'm glad that at this moment, African Union, for example, is talking about things like population dynamics, youth investment and youth employment, and also making it clear that women have the right to plan the size of their family. And even in a place like Niger, I'm here with my team, and Argentina Matavel, who leads our West Africa program, just this week was telling me about a huge success in Niger, where head of state, backed fully by the traditional chiefs, the chef traditionnel.
Yeah.
So tradition and culture have come together to say that every girl must be educated. And I'm talking about through secondary school, very protective of her life prospects, not just economically, but so much protection, including against gender-based violence, which is so prevalent in our region, like it is everywhere in the world. The other success there is that the traditional chiefs are backing contraception, family planning, the right of women to choose. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to turn the tables on you because of your wealth of experience and ask you, how is it that the women of Nigeria are going to be allowed to express that right to choose? And what do you see as coming on the horizon vis-a-vis the logistics of delivering in a village? Yes, if you're in a city, even there it can be difficult. But are we forgetting about our sisters in the hinterlands who also want to be able to choose the size of their family?
This is the first time it's been done on the stage.
I love it.
You see, I knew I was in trouble. But what a great question. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to step aside and be part of that mandate that I think is so wonderful. For me, since retirement indeed, and coming back to Nigeria, I have thought about that question. And for me, I thought part of the answer, or perhaps a significant part of the answer, is concrete efforts to economically empower the young women themselves. And that is indeed why C4C exists, Conversations for Change. We have found with so many cultural practices in Africa and many other countries in the world that actually when the woman is empowered, when the girl is empowered, they change those norms. Mm. They recognize their own need and they reach out to the last mile. And we think that in Africa, when we raise a significant number of young women, particularly, who have economic empowerment, who have enough money and funds and resources to make their decisions, that the change we're looking for will come.
Well, I am a big believer in making sure that every human being understands and knows and claims their rights. But as the female of the species, typically we're inhibited. We're thinking about everyone else's good. The last thing you want is to be accused of being selfish, so you're going to eat the last, you're going to be the last in line for so much that life has to offer, which is a noble thing. I think it's good to be generous and to share. But the difficulty arises when, the pregnant woman is sacrificing her nutrition and therefore the nutrition of her newborn in order to adapt to gender norms which don't serve the purpose. They may have long ago, but they no longer do. And I've been challenged from issues, for example, of what we've termed bodily autonomy. It means the right to say, my body is my own, even by devoted fathers who have cautioned me and said, well, executive director, does the body of the girl really belong to her, or does she belong to the family? And the right to one's own body is enshrined in so many human rights declarations over the course of time. But when gender comes into the picture, it shifts, and the expectation is that women will take the back seat. Sometimes as women, we ourselves expect that we should take the back seat. So to change that mindset among young women, we also need allies of young men. And that's something which I believe you've said over the years. And I think the new generation has been a bit more successful in terms of airing these issues. But for me, the success will come when that rate of gender-based violence goes down. And as you know, tomorrow we start the 16 days leading up to the Human Rights Day on against gender-based violence. And so these are really, really important issues, I think, for parents to discuss with young people. Young people are already discussing with each other. I worry about the misinformation that's out there, of course. But I think young people have had a lot of courage in terms of saying, you know, I have the right to my education, including about sexual and reproductive health matters that for so many hundreds of years have been taboo, and for so many hundreds of years have really damaged people's lives out of ignorance.
I mean, these are profound words, and they couldn't have come at a time when I think the issue, the burden of gender-based violence is probably at its peak as we speak. And I think, unfortunately, sadly, the COVID has made everything worse.
Yes. UNFPA was among the first to sound the alarm bell that with COVID, movement restriction, the so-called lockdowns, the quarantines, and the disruption in family life, including the economic disruption when people couldn't get to work and there was a big struggle over even, you know, how to leave the neighborhood and go for your livelihood. The markets were closed. We feared that girls being out of school as well would sadly be seen as an opportunity to take advantage of girls. And up to today, in conversations with UNICEF, that girls don't return to school, which typically happens once they drop out. So COVID really posed big challenges. And here on the African continent, AFRIAN, the network of youth who work on sexual and reproductive health, and there are thousands of them, took it upon themselves to build networks for social support. So, for example, many of them went into neighborhoods and helped older people during COVID. So you saw that intergenerational cooperation. It was really beautiful. We also had young sports guys who made sure to stand up and stick up for their sister, their neighbor, the girl next door, who was being harassed or attempts made to disrespect her during this time of COVID. Yet and still, and the statistics are fresh in my mind, in a place like Kenya, the teenage pregnancy rate swooped up by 40% last year.
I'm not surprised.
Right. Latin America, where I come from, same story. And this is on a backdrop where in Nigeria, for example, already 2 out of 5 marriages is girls under the age of 18. So we have a lot of soul searching to do. And again, I am a big believer in giving information to the person who has the rights. If I'm a rights holder, I'm so much more protected if someone tries to harass me or to sexually assault me, if I know that this is wrong, and at whatever age, if I can scream at the top of my lungs and demand for my rights. But you know what? Right now, girls are being told, you be quiet. Girls should be seen and not heard, and all this type of foolishness. Girls have a voice. They're actually very smart, and they have a lot to say, and we should do everything in our power to encourage them to speak. And I think there's nothing like bright sunlight and truth to be able to bring that rights holder her rights to her doorstep. And we see the benefits of this. I'm very excited. I'll be meeting your Minister of Finance during my mission, a female. You've had a lot of gender successes here in Nigeria. And of course, our Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, hails from right here. And so I think the time is now, especially with the challenges of girls out of school, COVID, the climate issues. It was Claude Ake who taught me that the African farmer is female. The person you see bent over the hoe is a woman at labor, and we have to do everything to protect her land, to make sure that she can succeed in the market, and also that her reproductive health is looked after. Your health is your wealth. and for women to be exhausted by pregnancy against their choice. Those days are still with us in many of our communities.
Sadly, sadly. You know, this is something I could go on talking about for several days.
Me too.
But remembering that I said we will cover just a few more sections, I will at this point in time move on to the next one.